Paur, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports, and welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. On today's show, I'm going to give you my 5 hot plays for Week 7 of the fantasy football season. Yes, these are 5 plays I think you'll want in your lineup for Week 7 if you have them on your roster. All right, my first hot play for this week is Aaron Jones, running back with the Green Bay Packers. So Jones had a terrible game last week, 10 carries for just 15 yards, but he faced the number 1 run defense in all of football in Tampa Bay. Very good run defense. This week, the exact opposite. Plays Houston. They're dead last against the run, allow 178 rushing yards per game. Jones has been steady all season despite last week. He has at least 13 fantasy points every game, 13 plus touches every game. If he gets that much work this week against Houston, I think he'll do some real damage and can post big time numbers in this matchup. My next hot play for Week 7 is Jaguars quarterback Gardner Minshew. So Minshew has been very consistent all year. He is actually, if you can believe this, 13th overall in quarterback scoring. He has at least 22 fantasy points, 3 straight games, and all but 1 game this year. And last week, he didn't have a great performance, but he still had 22 fantasy points. So even in a down game, he scored 22 fantasy points, which is pretty solid for fantasy teams. And this week, he has a great matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. They allow the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. They've really struggled to stop the pass. I think Minshew can post big numbers and continue his very consistent ways for all of his fantasy teams. My next hot play for this week is Bills receiver Stefon Diggs. So kind of like Minshew, Diggs has been a big surprise this year. We know he's a very talented receiver, but many thought his move to Buffalo would be a poor one for him. In fact, it's been a good one. He is actually 5th overall in fantasy receiver scoring right now. He has at least 4 receptions every game and 14.9 fantasy points every game as well. So he's been very good, post big numbers on a weekly basis. Bills' offense has been great. They play the Jets this week. They're just a mess defensively. They allow 253 passing yards per game. I think the Bills will rebound in a big way offensively this week, and Diggs is going to have a monster game in this great matchup. My next hot play is Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan. So it's amazing what a healthy Julio Jones can do for the passing game. Jones has been beat up the last several weeks. He finally looked healthy last week, had a huge game, and Matt Ryan responded with his best game of the season. He topped 35 fantasy points. It was his second 4-touchdown game of the season. His first one came early in the year when Jones was healthy as well. Now Jones is healthy, and this passing game seems to be clicking right now after Ryan had a stretch of poor games when his receivers were beat up and Jones was not at full strength. So Jones is back healthy. That's good news for Ryan. He plays Detroit this week. They allow the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, and they've also given up 10 passing touchdowns this year. I think Ryan keeps it going and has another big showing for all of his fantasy owners. My last hot play for Week 7 is Seahawks running back Chris Carson. So Carson had one of his best games of the season his last time out. He got last week off because of a bye, so that gets him even healthier. He's been kind of beat up this year. I think that bodes well for him this week. He has 19 plus fantasy points all but a game, and he has a good matchup against Arizona. They're middle of the pack against the run compared to doing better against the pass. I think the Seahawks may end up running the ball a little more than they have in recent weeks, and Carson's going to really benefit from this in a good matchup. He's been good all year. I think he'll be even healthier after the bye week, and I think he's going to have a huge game in Week 7. All right, those are my 5 hot plays for Week 7 of the fantasy season. I hope all of your games go well this week and that you have a lot of hot plays in your lineup. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Have a great day.